Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ali Jerkovich. I'm the program manager with the Veteran Senior Human Services Levy, responsible for this project. We are going to go ahead and do introductions. We're going to start with folks in the room. We have one guest here, and then if folks on the phone would please introduce yourselves and where you are calling from. And when you are done introducing yourself, if you could kindly mute your computer so that we don't have too much interference. So.
I'm Nate Donald, and I'm with Eastern Seals Washington here in Seattle.
Thanks, Nate. Folks on the phone?
Bonnie Olson. I'm one of the technical assistance providers with Emerging Design Consulting.
Great, thanks, Bonnie.
Hi, I'm Amy McDonald with Neighborhood House.
This is Rosemary DeGrossa from Jewish Family Service.
Hi, this is Stephen Lam from Chinese Information and Service Center.
This is Pam Blanton with Partners for Housing.
I think we might have one more person.
This is Barb Smith representing CISC.
So I may have interrupted her. My name is Helene Wenting from Community Homes.
Anyone else? Okay, great. So before we get started, we want to make sure that we are acknowledging that we are on native land. The first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, and the coastal Salish people, past and present. We want to honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. And our team is trying to do a better job about not only acknowledging the land, but also finding ways that we can get involved in supporting our local Native community. And if you're interested in learning more about the Duwamish tribe, we have their website linked here. Thank you to everyone who introduced yourself. If we have any folks who join, please go ahead and just message us in the chat option on Skype. So a little bit about what we are going to be covering today. We'll talk briefly about what the Veteran Senior and Human Services Levy is. We'll talk about the strategy SS3C, the system navigation for persons with disabilities and their caregivers. And basically just what is outlined in the implementation plan of the Veteran Senior Human Services Levy, which I will refer to as the levy moving forward, so because it is a bit of a mouthful. And then we will talk specifically about the RFP and the components of the RFP. We will talk a little bit about technical assistance and what opportunities there are for both the application process as well as post-awards, and then information about Zoom grants and how you apply. We will have time for questions and answers at the end, so please hold them until then. You are also welcome to use the chat box in Skype to post your questions. Just so you know that this meeting is being recorded and will be available on our VSHSL funding page, and that information is provided as well in the RFP itself, so you do not have to note it now. So, what is the Veteran Seniors and Human Services Levy? As you can see on this slide, if folks are using Skype, the Veteran Senior Human Services Levy was passed by King County tax voters in 2017. It is a 6-year property tax levy. It replaces the former Veterans and Human Services Levy by adding seniors, which are identified as individuals over 55 years old and their caregivers. Veterans also has an expanded definition to include any service members, regardless of status, as well as their families. And then this bucket of funding is within the vulnerable populations team. And there are 5 result areas for those 3 priority populations: the housing stability, financial stability, social engagement, healthy living, and service system access and improvement, which is what this strategy falls under. So service system access, anytime you see a levy funded strategy with an SS before it, that is what we are referring to. A couple of the guiding principles of the levy itself are three things: the connection, belonging, community of service, and then this guiding principle that stands for our team and all the work that we are doing, which is what can only this levy do? And so that stands as our North Star to figure out where can we fill in gaps in funding, where can we prioritize communities that have not been prioritized in the past, and how can we support the community with things that this levy is able to do that other funding streams might not be able to do. In King County, and I will say especially for our team, the prioritizing of our equity and social justice values means that we are hoping to ensure that all people, regardless of who they are and where they live, have the opportunity to thrive with full and equal access to opportunities, power, and resources. And that shows up in the RFP by both calling out specific equity and social justice principles, as well as in our narrative questions and in the application itself. You will see there is a section titled Equity and Social Justice that helps to frame some of this work, although we will say that it is embedded and is prioritized throughout the entire application process. So the strategy for SS3C, and there will be overlap between this strategy as it stands in the implementation plan, as well as what the request for proposal individuals applying for this request for proposal to do. So it looks at a couple different things. So really this overarching goal of programming to build the capacity of systems and/or people that also promotes the inclusion, equitable access, advocacy, and self-determination of persons with disabilities and their caregivers, that addresses the root causes of inequitable access to resources and information, and to center and amplify the experiences of marginalized communities. And we have no focus population specific to this RFP, although we do want to call out this funding is open to and encourages supports for persons with disabilities of all kinds. So the scope of work has three core sections. Folks are welcome to apply for more than one, although you are not required to. As you will see in the RFP and the narrative questions, it will ask which scope of work you are applying for. Check all that apply. You only need to check one. So just to call that out. The first one is to build peer support and peer-led services. And all of this information is more detailed and better outlined within the RFP itself. And so I just want to be clear that we are giving a high-level overview, and so the language is simplified for the purposes of today. But the general guidelines are something similar to a peer education group, peer-led community building opportunities, peer-led community education and outreach events, person-centered programming that teaches resources and advocacy skills, and programming that increases empowerment, advocacy, and leadership skills to promote systems accountability. The second scope of work, or the second area, is training and support for community and/or systems-based providers. So to support organizations to institutionalize person-centered planning and person-centered practices, to develop training programs to support that work, to provide technical assistance to these community and/or systems-based programs, and programming that increases again the empowerment, advocacy, and leadership skills for individuals and families to promote this system's accountability. And then the third scope of work is an innovative service. We have certainly not thought of all of the things that the community might want and need, and so we are also offering a space for you to tell us what this means. So to promote a culture shift toward inclusion and understanding, to increase access to services and opportunity for persons with disabilities, and specifically emphasize marginalized communities and individuals with the greatest barriers to services. I will say that third point is something that we expect and want to see across all of the scope of work, but we want to be specific in calling it out here. And the other tenet of this is a coordinated system response. So we want to be clear that within the scope of work that any awarded organizations will also be supported to operate as part of a coordinated system to serve individuals and their families. Essentially, we know that programs and individuals work better when they are together, not just in promoting the community to do it itself, but the provider community of awarded programs so that they can learn from each other's skills, can learn from insights, successes of this programming, and also to build advocacy power for groups to have an amplified voice. The funding for this investment is up to $1,035,300. That's available for the program period of February until December 31st, subject to change. It's likely it will be March. Applicants, whether an individual entity or a partnership between multiple entities, may request awards up to $400,000. And so you are welcome to partner with another entity to apply. And more information about what a partnership would look like is outlined in the RFP itself. But any individual application can apply for up to $400,000, roughly a little under half of the investment allotment. And as a disclaimer, the 2021 to 23 funding is contingent on approval of the King County Council budget and continued partnerships and the provision of data on program performance and implementation. So for eligibility, we are looking for applicants who either currently serve or meaningfully engage with persons with disabilities and their caregivers in King County, or have a clear plan to build capacity to provide the eligible services outlined in the scope of work. And also to currently provide or have a willingness to provide and be able to speak to culturally specific supports, or to meaningfully partner with culturally specific providers or equivalent community-based entities. The contract requirements, and these are pretty standard across all of the levy investments, is a piece around evaluation. So while you are not required to submit a detailed, fully developed evaluation plan in your request for proposal, please be sure that your program model accounts for the strategy's anticipated core performance measures. And those are detailed in the RFP as well under performance measurement and evaluation. And just as an FYI about what that will look like, the data collection and reporting, there will be client level data associated with this investment, as well as aggregate and narrative reports. So the timeline, the RFP was released on Monday. We are here, December 20th at the Bidders Conference. The final date for small agencies to initiate requests for technical assistance, which we will talk about, is January 20th. The final day to submit questions is January 27th, and responses are due on February 3rd. The responses will be reviewed and rated in February. If we do intend to do interviews with applicants, which is whether it's deemed necessary based on the applicant pool or outstanding questions we might have, those would also happen in February. Our best intent is to notify folks of awards in February, although it could be in March, which is also our anticipated contract date. And again, all of these dates are subject to change depending on how things play. So to apply for the RFP, submit proposals to the Zoom Grants platform no later than 11:59 p.m. on Monday, February 3rd. We do encourage folks to submit sooner. Zoom Grants is a phenomenal platform, but we want to make sure that folks account for any glitches or any unforeseen circumstances. So don't wait until 11:58 p.m., but that is the cutoff. And complete submittals will include the responses to the summary questions, responses to narrative questions, which also includes an organizational equity chart, which is outlined in the narrative questions and in the Zoom Grants platform, and a budget. The rating criteria for the RFP are the things outlined in front of you. There's a section on organizational background and experience, program model, equity and social justice, budget and fiscal, data collection and evaluation, and interviews if necessary. And I do want to touch just briefly on the budget. We are asking that folks do an anticipated budget that is an annual budget, not necessarily based on the actual timeline of the RFP moving forward, but what you would expect to use annually. So for technical assistance, free application support is available for small organizations, which are defined as having fewer than 20 FTE, not people, but fewer than 20 combined staff that would make an FTE, and have less than a $4 million operating budget in the prior fiscal year. So if you qualify under those two requirements, you can contact our technical assistance consultants directly. That needs to happen before the final 2 weeks of the RFP close, which is by January 20th. And on the Zoom Grants platform, you can see attachment D that has a list of all of our consultants who are phenomenal that can help folks work on their application, help with their budget. The intent really is to show up for our equity and social justice values and sort of follow this core value of the what can only VSHSL do, and making sure that we are making government funding accessible and available to smaller organizations and providers who we know are doing incredible work in the community but might not have applied for government funding in the past, or who would like the support to work on this application. So Zoom Grants. All of the RFP materials are posted on Zoom Grants. It is important that you check regularly for updates, because any questions asked at today's bidders conference, as well as any questions that I receive in writing, will be posted onto Zoom Grants regularly under the Documents Library tab. That will be updated with an FAQ posted on date. And so if you are curious about, if you have a question you think someone else might have asked, it's important to check regularly for those. That will also be posted as a message in the Zoom Grants platform. All applications must be filled out and submitted via Zoom Grants. And the link is on this page as well as in the RFP itself. And if you are currently signed up for the listserv, you should have also received an email. If you are curious about other open funding opportunities, including this one, you can visit our VSHSL funding page, which will also have links to this investment. So we're now going to make time for questions. If you have questions that are outstanding after today's bidders conference, please send me an email at my email address, which is ajurkovich@kingcounty.gov. That is also listed on the RFP. You will get a generic email back from me that says something akin to, because it is an open procurement period, I can't answer questions directly to one individual person, but that the questions you ask will be again uploaded onto the Zoom Grants platform. If you have any other questions, again, you can visit kingcounty.gov/VSHSL-funding. So it looks like we have one question already on Skype, and so I'm going to go ahead and read and answer that one first. When you say that applicants can request up to $400,000, is that per year or for the entire 4-year program period? That is for the entire 4-year program period. We intend to award up to 5 different programs, and that, again, we reserve the right to increase or decrease depending on the number of applicants, but we are asking that folks submit a proposal that is no more than $400,000 so that we can account for the fact that we are intending to award at least 2 organizations, again, depending on the amount of applicants. Arena, did that answer your question?
Hi, yes, thank you. That helps.
Okay, great. Do we have any other questions?
This is Bonnie Olson. I had a couple things I was wondering about. One, do you have any guidance for how much time, staff time, people should plan in their budgets to participate in the coordinated meetings that you're going to host?
That is a phenomenal question, Bonnie. Thank you. We do not have a plan for how regularly the group would meet. We just want to make sure that awarded applicants have a chance to have space to work together. And so I will circle back with my team and hope to provide a little bit more of a robust answer. But I wouldn't imagine it would be more than a quarterly meeting. But again, I will get more detailed information to provide and we'll load that in the FAQs.
Okay, great.
But it is not intended to be, you know, a bi-weekly meeting or anything like that. It's more just to make a space for folks to learn from one another and be together, because that is actually something we heard about in the planning sessions, was that it's really helpful to have a coordinated response and to learn about the work that other folks are doing. And we don't always create space for that. And so we're trying to add that into the contracting. We are providing a space for you that's funded by King County to do that work that folks were asking for.
Great. And then my other question was, if people are proposing to do some kind of training or support for systems in terms of their responsiveness and flexibility, should they do they need to document any kind of existing relationship or agreement with the systems that they want to do the training with? It doesn't specifically say so in here. I'm just wondering if that's assumed that they would document their existing relationship.
Yeah, so there's no assumption of what folks will or will not propose. You know, I think people might have existing relationships, and the more information you provide us about the work you intend to do or would like to do, the better. If that's information folks have, if they have existing relationships, that would be wonderful to share, although it's not a requirement of the proposal itself.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
Hi, this is Stephen from Chinese Information and Service Center. I just want to know, is there any age requirement for the people of disability to receive the services?
Great question, Stephen. Thank you. So there is no age requirement that is called out specifically, although you will note that in the background section where we lay out kind of the argument for why this is the strategy that we're employing or the way that we are asking for applicants, is we're looking to prioritize gaps. And so one of the things we talk about is folks who are between those ages of systems-based supports in school, moving into adulthood, and that long-term planning that is needed, that we are hoping to prioritize some of the things that are called out in the background. And so while there is no age gap, I encourage folks to read that background and really think about what are the gaps that are needed in the community. And a lot of the feedback we heard is that adults with disabilities, rather than school-aged folks or younger, is an area where service system access is a really big issue and something that we're looking to fund. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I see. Thank you. Yeah, that's very clear.
Do we have any questions in the room?
Nope.
Great. Okay, well, not noting any other questions right now, please remember you are welcome to email me at ajurkovich@kingcounty.gov. These questions, as well as the bidders conference that's being recorded, will be uploaded onto the platform. All of this information can also be found again on our VSHSL funding page. Thank you all so much. Happy Friday, and I hope you enjoy your weekends.
Thank you. You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.